There's no music or anything. All right, Council, if we could have your attention, we will call our Tuesday, January 2nd, first meeting of 2024 to order. Thank you for those who are joining us with us. A little different setup today, so we're trying to make accommodations for the extra attendance and staff that typically attends our work session. So trying this out as a model today. With that, Council, we've been requested by the city attorney as well as the manager for a closed session to discuss economic development and attorney-client privilege. So we'll need a motion that will capture both objectives. All right, it's a motion by Councilmember Thompson to go into closed session for the purposes of economic development, attorney-client. All right, so motion by Councilmember Thompson, seconded by Councilmember Hare. Discussion on that motion? All right, Council, those in favor, show of hands. All right, motion carries by those voting. Yeah, we're in here. All right, so. Item 2.0 is the invocation. Any volunteers to give us a prayer? All right. Councilmember Thompson, if we could stand for the prayer and then immediately following the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Dear Lord, Heavenly Father, Jehovah, the great I am. Dear Lord, we love you, dear Lord. We thank you for all that you have done for us in 2023 and know that you will prosper in everything that we do in 2024. Dear Lord, I hope and pray that you would magnify yourself in our hearts and in our soul and in our minds, Heavenly Father, that we can do what's best for your people. Do what's best in moving the city forward. Do what's best for our family and friends. Do what's best for our community. Do what's best for our neighbor. Dear Lord, make us better tomorrow than we are today, dear Lord. We know that only you can do it. Without you, we're nothing, dear Lord. So hold on to us. Let the Holy Spirit reign in us, dear Lord. Dear Lord, we bless this meeting that we're having. We bless council. We bless the mayor. We bless this great city of Fayetteville. Let it be your will, dear Lord, that we will prosper. We ask these things in your son Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Councilmember Thompson. Council, as we move to 3.0 is the approval of the agenda. Can we have a motion to approve? All right, there's a motion by Councilmember Benavente. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilmember Davis. Discussion on the motion to approve? All right, those in favor, show of hands for approval of the agenda. All right, Madam Clerk, that is unanimous. All right, moving to item 4.01, proposed text amendments to Chapter 30 UDO. Mr. Harmon, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too, Mr. Mayor and Council. Good to see everybody again. And for those couple of new council members that I've not had a chance to meet yet, I'm Craig Harmon, Senior Planner with the Development Services Department. So what we do every year is typically twice a year we come to City Council with a set of new text amendments, different items that we've seen throughout the year that may need some tweaking or changing. And that's what we're here kind of for tonight, is one of those times. So these are all text amendments to Chapter 30 of our city code, which is the UDO. And as always, what these are typically items that are either cleanup to fix something in the code, something that's been brought to us by the developers in Fayetteville or the community at large, or they have something to do with some type of policy and how do we move forward for the city. As City Council asked us to do several years ago, we bring these to y'all first, just as a very brief overview. Then they go to the Planning Commission, which by state statute, any of text amendments for our UDO have to go before them before eventually coming back to you with their recommendation for approval. So what we have tonight, we've got 8 items that we've put together that we've seen in the last few months that we thought warranted some looking at further possible changes to the ordinance. The first 2 are very similar to each other. They just are in 2 different sections of the ordinance. This is reducing our regulations a little bit, making it easier to do adaptive reuse projects and infill projects. And it's reducing the parking standards for those just a little bit. The third one that we have is to better define office warehouse use. One, by amending the districts that they're allowed in, and then also setting a ratio of how much office to warehouse needs to be for it to qualify for office warehouse. There's nothing currently in the ordinance for that. The fourth one that we have is amend the definitions and standards to better differentiate between standard gas stations and truck stop gas stations. Currently, we only have one definition. This is adding a second, helping out so that there are enough differences in the two that it makes it a little difficult to shove both into the same category. And we've had a few of these that have come up in the last year. And so we're just trying to clean it up to make it easier for someone when they come in with either a gas station or truck stop to be able to develop it. Then we're also looking to resolve conflicts in our current ordinance between general canopy heights and canopy heights for gas stations. Currently, they're listed as the same thing. As you know, a canopy at a gas station is pretty high. A canopy on a building downtown is going to be just above your head. So they're two completely different animals, but they're regulated the same way currently in our ordinance, and we just want to do some clarification on that. The sixth one is reducing our off-street parking standards for industrial uses. Currently, things such as a warehouse require more parking than, say, for an office building. And typically, that's not the case. Typically, a warehouse has a lot fewer people working in it and a lot fewer need for the parking. So we want to take that to the Planning Commission and look at that as well. Looking to reintroduce sign height and setback standards in residential districts. Again, this is just residential districts. We used to have those prior to the adoption of the UDO, and we're just looking to put some standards back into the ordinance for that in the UDO now.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Question on that one, Mayor. And you say we lost, and I'm speaking of item 7, you say we lost that during the structure of the UDO. So my question is, what I have seen across the city, and especially across my district, as far as signs, are you speaking of the community signs? Or are you speaking of street signs?
These would be basically some type of business sign where it was.
Okay, these are just for businesses?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, it would affect churches, it would affect businesses, it would affect anything like that, but this is just the ones in a residentially zoned district.
So,
We're not changing the design standards in commercial
but
districts.
just the height and the setback?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Just to get some uniformity in
Gotcha.
both of those. And then lastly, amend the UDO for backing into streets for 2 to 4 family dwellings and townhomes. There's an odd little place in the UDO that doesn't allow backing into the street if you have a duplex or a quadplex or a townhome. But single-family residents are allowed to do it. We're just looking to give those, since those are typically found in single-family neighborhoods, there's no reason to really have a standard for not allowing people to back out. So those are the 8 items that we're looking to bring back to you after the Zoning Commission has taken a look at them here in the next month or so. So tonight, what we're looking to do is get direction from City Council, hopefully to direct us to either present some, or we hope all of these proposed text amendments to the Planning Commission here in the next month or so, and then bring them back for you with their recommendations.
Councilman Bear. Yes, sir, Mayor. I will, I don't know if I'm making it. I'm asking consensus. Could you, yes, thank you.
recommended action that we direct staff to present all of the amendments to the Planning Staff Commission.
Okay, there's a consensus motion by Councilman Hare. Those in favor, sure, had a question, Councilman? All right, those in favor? All right, Mr. Harmon, that carries. I did have a question. We had asked some time ago when we talked about the number of violations that code enforcement actually does here compared to municipal peers. It's 2 and 3 times. And they were going to check to see how many items we had that triggered a violation of the UDO. When, Mr. Hewitt, I saw you raising your hand. When can we expect to have that information?
Well, we will come back with a time frame on that, but I was also going to add, Mayor, central to one of the questions that I know that you and I have discussed and other members of council, was specifically looking at special use permits in particular, where I think that there are some 115 different uses which trigger a special use permit, and I'm not sure if that's also one of the concerns that you mentioned. We are lining that up to bring back to council for your consideration in February for discussion, and we will see if there's something that we can look at as it relates to code violations too. The concern for code violations that I want to look at in for special use permits, it doesn't help us to reduce the numbers of uses that trigger a special use permit or to reduce the number of code violations if those are violations or uses which over the last 5 years we have never enforced. So if we have 115 things which we are permitted by the code to cite someone for a code violation, if we've never had occasion to cite someone for having turkeys roaming wild on Hay Street, then I don't want to bring that to you and make that y'all feel like, but so I needed to do a little bit more analysis on that. But I know we have lined up the special use permit specifically with that type of information because that has been a concern not only for the council but the community as well and development community, knowing what the council, but hopefully we'll have that both reports, SVP report in February, and we'll have a schedule for the code violations in February as well. Don't know that we'll have that, but we will strive for that.
All right, thank you. All right, yes, sir, Councilman Thompson.
Doug, you made me propose a question now from your comments, and that is about code violations and what we report and what we don't report. And I'm going to give you an example of something that I brought to your attention about a developer not putting up a silt barrier around a construction site. Well, unbeknownst to me, I did not know that it had to be an acre or more for him to put up that silt barrier. But then the question would be, well, what difference do it make whether it's an acre or a half an acre? He's still putting silt down into our water system. So help me understand your comment.
Well, it depends on what is a city code violation or what is a state or water quality issue, which is what triggers. And that's why it becomes very confusing for us to figure out what we enforce versus other people enforcing. But I will make a note with Kelly that we will go back and specifically look at that. But what triggers it is as you know, is the size of the development, whether it's clear cut, as well as trying to make sure that the runoff does not get into the water system. And so, but we do work very cooperatively with the state to identify those as well. But that's the exact type of question that I wanted to be able to answer about what entails. Mayor, I think you said 113 different things, which we look at when other cities may not look at that many. It very well could be that we have, again, something archaic on our code that we need to remove because it's no longer applicable. But at the same time, it's a lot of work to do that. And if it's something that hasn't been triggered in forever, then I think the big issue, as the mayor and I have discussed, is really trying to help figure out what the current council wants to do with special use permits. And that's the report we will bring you in February.
All right, council, any other questions before we move to the next item? All right, moving to item 4.02, solid waste acceptable containers. Oh my, he has this Pittsburgh Steelers stuff on. How you doing, sir? I'm doing all right. I thought the new year would have brought about some change, do you?
Yes, sir. We ain't out of it yet. Happy New Year, everybody. Let me get this. I'm awesome. All right. Okay. All right. Once again, I want to say hello to everybody. If I'm going up and down, because I got these readers on and I can't see y'all. And I had a cold, so if you can't hear me, just let me know. All right, so we're excited today to report on what we have been able to accomplish through your leadership. We came back to you last year with some ordinance revisions. They were not drastic changes, but we wanted to clean up the ordinance and the ordinance ambiguity and service limits and to get you to support enforcing the ordinance. We knew that the ordinance changes would lead to some behaviors, not so much that the rules were changing, but the fact that we were going to start enforcing the ordinance. At your request, we delayed the full implementation of the ordinance, and we delayed that to July 1. But in that meantime, what we did was we tagged and we talked and we educated residents on what the compliance would be once we started. And then additionally, we waited until August just because I said, let's hold off another month. Let's continue to talk. Let's continue to tag and educate residents so that they can understand what the rules are. Through the buildup, and since July, we have not been inundated with a lot of complaints. I will show you data by having a more predictable and enforceable in the ordinance and more consistent in our practices of enforcing it. It actually leads to a better understanding, happier residents, and a cleaner city. We are happy to report that all three of these things are happening. We've gone through the whole year. We have not gone through the whole year, and we're actually excited to see how next year the changes will help the city look even better. But now I'm going to go through the request that has been made of why we're not picking up other types of bags, such as biodegradable bags and reusable bags. This is where we left off at, the approved service limits. This is directly out of the slides that I presented to you guys last time. And as you can see in the previous ordinance, there were no service limits for household carts. Recycling wasn't in the ordinance whatsoever. Yard waste had no limits. Limbs, there was a 20 cubic yard limit, and private streets was not included in the ordinance. So the service limits that we asked for, that's what we had came to talk about, service limits, is to get us to a level point where we can move forward. Was 2 carts, 1 cart for recycling, and then the yard waste was a combination of the 10 containerized items. 10 containerized items. We didn't talk a lot about the items, how they had to be containerized, because we weren't asking to change any of those. They were already in the ordinance, and we were happy with them the way they were at this time. The next 2 slides I'm going to show you are going to show you some data that when we started enforcing the ordinance. In the early months, you can see that we were letting a lot of things go through. And this is the household side. In a second, I'm going to go to the yard waste slide that shows you what the data is from us tagging. And what this is, and let me explain it real quick, is you can see the top portion is what's on the tags. So that's what we would tag a resident with. If you had an overfilled cart, you had this, you had that, that would be the tag that they would get. And you can see in April when we first started, it was a little rocky, getting staff to do it, making sure everybody was compliant and they understood the rules. And then moving forward, you can see how it built up. And then, it kind of leveled off, and then it went down. And then in November, it went back up again, holiday times. But this is the yard waste. Just from enforcing the ordinance, it has made an impact. It has made a difference. And from what we're seeing, people are coming into compliance. These tags in March. You see it was 683. Like I said, that's when we first started. Then in April, it blew up. May, it blew up. June, it went down. July, it still leveled off. August, we had it peaked a little bit, and then it started going down again. This is from our staff doing their job, doing the things that we've asked them to do, following the ordinance that gracefully you guys have given for us to put out there. Even though the amount of tags were going up and down, we have not been overrun with calls and complaints from the call center. We're here today because 4 people asked for a change, which to us is a victory. We are serving 64,000 residents. 64,000 residents. And when you look at this, you might say, well, 1%. But the way we look at it as 99% of the residents are doing it right. 99% of the residents are doing it right. And when we tag and educate them, almost all of them comply. That's what we're seeing. That's what we're seeing. And to us, to the public, who I work for, Public Works, because I want public services. I'm still used to saying Public Works. For public services, that's a win. That's a win. To have 99% compliance, it's a win. So that's how we look at it. It's a win. This is one of my favorite peer city comparisons. I love this because it always shows what we're doing compared to everybody else. This is a older slide that we just updated and added more information and just kind of took out some of the other stuff so we can make it bigger so that you can really see. The trend is to restrict containers, not to add more. That's the trend from our sister cities. When you look at this slide, you see what we do compared to our other cities. And we do, as I've said before, equal to or more what everybody else is doing. When you look at Winston-Salem and Durham, they have subscription service. The residents, if they want to get picked up yard waste, if they want their yard waste collected, then they have to pay for it. They have to pay for it. Fayetteville and Greensboro are the only ones that use bags. But if you look at Greensboro, they only use heavy-duty clear plastic bags. We're allowing whatever color plastic bag you can get, minus the biohazard bags. You can see what we do. You can see the trend is to restrict. We are trying to standardize this process of collection. Standardization makes it where our staff makes less mistakes, lowers injuries. It keeps our 64,000 residents operation running. The more variants we introduce, the more complicated it becomes, and the more mistakes the staff are going to make. Standardization was the intent behind service limits, the presentation, and the ordinance changes. Thankfully, we've only had a few people that this has been a challenge for, and we have been successful in getting them a solution. The best option, of course, to be environmentally friendly would be to get rid of plastic bags altogether. We understand that. But we cannot use biodegradable bags here in Fayetteville because where we bring the material, they don't take that. So we have to go with what the facility is that we're bringing the material. And like I mentioned earlier about the plastic bags, two out of the 5 use them, and only one of them makes them use clear plastic bags. So this is the comparison that's in the ordinance. This is section 22-5 in the previous ordinance and the new ordinance. Now, I'm not going to try to read all this, but we just highlighted some things so that you can see that there isn't big changes in these ordinances. We changed some ambiguity. We made some things brought it up to date with our language, but the same plastic bags was in there from before. The same cans were in there as before. Nothing pretty much has changed. Section 22-10, same thing. Now, this is the meat and potatoes of what we do. 22-10 has the household and the recycling, yard waste, bulky, the large limbs, private streets. This is what we do. 22-10 is what we do. And as you can see, that there's not a lot of changes in there. We didn't present it because we only tweaked some of the language. That's all we did. So there was no, we weren't trying to hide anything or anything like that. We weren't trying to change how they were collected. We were trying to change the service limits of how much was collected because we couldn't keep up. So this is just another slide with a broken down version of what's in the new ordinance. And you can see we take the carts, we take the cans, we take bags, and we take bundles. Now, this is my favorite slide right here. We talked about variety or variant different types of ways. You cannot imagine how many ways it makes sense for a resident to put out yard waste. This is just a few of them. What we got here, clothes baskets, the reusable bags, swimming pools, the little kiddie swimming pools, wheelbarrows, recycle carts, any crate they can find, broken cans that we cannot pick up, planters, 50-gallon drums, oversized loads in any cart they can find. And the worst one is the biohazard bags. We don't even know where people are getting biohazard bags from, but we're not collecting them because we're not biohazard qualified. We ask the residents if there's something, if it's just yard waste, could you please put them in a regular bag? Now, this is just some of the many pictures that our staff sends back when they tag because they're not supposed to tag without taking a picture. So when they take these, they send them back to the yard waste supervisor who's in the back, and I told them, send me some pictures, and I just took a handful of them because I wanted to show you it's not just reusable bags that the residents want to use. They want to use whatever they can get their hands on. And this is my boss's favorite. There is so many reusable bags out there. There's so many of them. There's so many. And if we look at just the one that says 3-pack, if we say we're going to use that one that says 3-pack over there in the corner because some of those, you can get lids for some of those. But then you're going to alienate everybody else who don't have a lid. Like this one right here does not have a lid. And let me tell you, that's a big bag. It looks small on the picture, but that's huge. That's bigger than the 96-gallon carts that we use. And they had 2 of them out there. All of these cannot have lids. This one right here in the middle, the black one, it zips up. The purpose of behind the lids and zipping things up and not zipping things up, purpose of the lids and tying the bags and making sure that the yard waste is secure is so they don't get wet. So it doesn't become over 50 pounds. And the resident, when they put it in the carts, it wasn't 50 pounds. But now, because it rained and they didn't have a lid or they had it open, now it weighs more. Now it's 50 pounds. It's over 50 pounds and we can't lift it. So it's a lot of variety when you talk about even using reusable bags. It's a lot. Where do we start? And this is just some of them. This is just some of them. We definitely have a system that's working, and it's definitely working, and we're really excited about what we're doing. So our ask today is that you allow us to keep the restrictions in place that we have, or the ordinance the way it's written. In fact, we may come back later and ask for more. But for right now, the system is working exactly how you designed it and exactly how you guys approved it. Even going all the way back to allowing us to go to every other week collection. It has been your decisions from the options that we have been giving you that have made us able to make Fayetteville cleaner than it used to be. So we thank you, and I'll take any questions.
All right. Thank you, sir. Did have a question, Councilmember Hare?
Thank you, Mayor. Good report, sir. I did go through it in detail. What are we calling the bags? Because when you were speaking about the biodegradable, what do we call the bags that our fire department gives out?
I couldn't tell you. I don't know what they give out, sir. I've never heard
They
that.
give out these jumbo.
Yes, sir. Those are
Plastic,
our
are they
yard weights,
bio?
yard
Yeah.
weights bags for loose leaf collection.
Right, I understand that. But what my question is, since he was saying that we weren't using biodegradable bags, I was wondering, well, what do you call that bag? Because we picking those up too.
Yeah.
It must be plastic. If we're picking it up, it has to be a plastic bag.
Well, I think that, and I may be wrong, Councilman, here. Mr. Edwards was saying that they occasionally find someone who has a biohazard bag that they put out.
A red bag.
But there's a difference between a biohazard bag and a
And a
biodegradable
biodegradable
bag and just a plastic bag. And so I think that some of the terminology that he's, and he does have.
So we're still in conformity with what our fire department gives to our residents every year?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now, my other question is, how do we go about, because I received these calls this winter time, how do we go about, I don't know if the word is fining or educating residents about these oversized tree cutting bush limbs? Because I get calls on them quite often. Within the last week or so, will the city come pick this up? So tell me how that works, and maybe our citizens tonight can hear it for
All right,
education.
So if we get to a pile, I'm going to use yard waste, and then I can go to bulky. If we get to a yard waste pile and the limbs are bigger than 3 inches in diameter or 4 or 5 feet long, that's too long for the yard waste, then it's tagged. It's tagged, and then the bulky truck will pick it up. If the bulky truck gets to a pile and they have those tree trunks out there, those root balls out there,
Right.
Somebody done cut the tree down and they didn't chop it up within 6 inches, then it's tagged again. It'll get tagged by the bulky truck drivers, and then in both cases, the resident has time to fix the situation. If they don't fix it within 10 days, then they get cited, and that's when Rapid gets involved.
So, and fixing it means either cutting it down to the dimensions that's requested or moving it themselves.
Yes, sir. Bring it into compliance, or they can call and pay to get it picked up. Also, if they want to do that, that's an option.
You
Also,
call into our system.
yes.
Okay, all right. Very good, very good.
So-
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Evans did have a couple questions. So one, got a call today from a constituent in District 8 about loose leaves blowing into the drains. And so he said he was told, and I sent this email to copy you guys on it, that the driver told there were 2 or 3 trucks down, of the vacuum trucks, I suppose. So during loose leaf time, since we only do that once or twice a year, wouldn't it help to allow a little bit more flexibility on what leaves are put in for that period of time? So that when, as we make our way around this big city, to pick up, big in land mass, to pick these up in a timely way, that loose leaf pickup, every year we deal with people want to know when you're going to finally get to my neighborhood. Wouldn't it be better to encourage them to put it in some type of container? Because what you're saying is you don't want to approve or want council to consider any of these because it might discriminate against one or the other. But what do we do in a case like that? Would you rather have it on the street for months at a time, or would you rather have it in something?
No, sir. We'd rather people containerize year-round. The loose leaf trucks, they do go down from time to time. They are temperamental. And as you and other members of council, new members will hear, if you haven't already, the 2 of the new ones, we rotate the schedule as well. And so 28311 may be the 1st of December this year, and then it may be the second week in December next year. All of the leaves don't always fall at the same time, but we can definitely come back and talk to Parks and Recreation, which manages the loose leaf season. But to answer your question specifically, our preference, and one of the things that we'll be bringing to council for your consideration as part of our reimagining government, is that we follow the lead of other cities, which is because we offer containerized weekly collection of leaves, that the council would make loose leaf collection, because some residents need it, that you may make that an optional or for a fee, and that way people can actually schedule for a fee when we would go out and collect those loose leaves. I've lived in Fayetteville on and off since 2004, and I have never raked leaves to the curb to just leave to blow around in the street. But that's different than, because I don't have a lot of trees. I want to be clear about that. But and when I do, I would always have someone that could help me with it. But it is one of those services that the citizens who utilize it value it greatly, but a majority of citizens don't. And so, but the answer to your question specifically is our preference would be that folks containerize, and then Daniel and his crews can scale up every week, even if they have to pick stuff up on Saturdays or to float and through the week. But when Michael and his crews get behind because of equipment failures or rain, which is also a real big concern for the loose leaf truck, it makes it even harder for us to get caught up.
All right, thank you. Councilman Alejandros.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Back to the different reusable bags. And I appreciate the report, Mr. Edwards, thank you. And I appreciate the explanation of why a lot of these aren't used, because a lot of them don't have a lid. So when they get wet from the rain, it becomes a weight issue. But for the reusable ones that maybe do have a lid, why couldn't we use, I mean, the words of the day are regional and then green. So with all the push for green, any new building, any new vehicles we get, we want to be efficient and green. It just kind of cuts against the grain to tell residents they can't use any reusable containers. We want them to use, I mean, obviously they use the plastic garbage cans that are reusable, but to use garbage bags that are one-time use, that are disposable as opposed to reusable. So if we had a requirement, to the mayor's point about just being more inclusive, if there was a reusable bag that had a lid or was able to be tied or sealed at the top some way, to have those approved and then some of the others not, that's just kind of what I was looking for.
You want me to respond? Okay. I hear you, and you're gonna run into the case where the residents who have the reusable bags with the lids are gonna get a service that the ones who have the reusable bags without lids do not get a service. Right now, we have a standard. We have a standard right now, and we're already picking up more. We already give more options than all of our sister cities. We want to be green. Trust me. I'm from up north. We want to be green. The greatest way to do that would not even be these bags. Would be for them to get the brown carts, which will hold more than most of these bags and are going to last longer than these bags, that come with a 10-year warranty that the city is on the hook for 10 years. 10 years. If we rip any of these, which they can rip, then the residents are going to be saying, well, solid waste, rip my bag, and they won't replace it. You know, this brings a whole nother variety of set of circumstances and situations with it when we have a set standard that is working. I just think it's going to open up other doors for other folks who don't have it.
The standard could be that it has a lid, and then we don't replace the other containers that get broken along the way. So why would we replace damaged reusable bags?
So if I don't have a lid on mine, do I have to go buy now new
That's
reusable
it. It has to have a
bags?
lid. I mean, that's better than saying no reusable bags. If the reason is to have a lid so it doesn't weigh too much, then yeah, just make that the rule, that it has to have a lid. I mean, it's easy enough for me.
Well, I think we're trying to reduce the variety versus open it up more and more and more. I mean, but that's just how with the way the system is working right now and how we're able to help residents learn the ordinance that we are now enforcing since July 1, and it's working, the compliance that we're getting from the residents and the buy-in that we're getting from the residents are saying, wow, I'm glad you guys are telling me that. I've been here for years. Nobody ever said that. Thank you for telling me that. Now we can continue to do that and create the standard with what we already have and then work our way from there. That's
Well, I guess it's a philosophy of if what we're doing is working and to what degree and whose opinion it is, right? Because if can we keep more leaves out of our storm drain system? Probably so. And so I think that's kind of the question at hand. I understand what you're saying, but I think what you are saying is that you have success when you communicate and educate the public about what the rules are.
yes, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Can,
whenever you have a chance.
add Mayor Pro Tem. Go ahead. You need to add something.
I was just going to say, the question really, Daniel, is this the last of your slides?
I'm finished, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, just have a seat beside Councilmember Graham. Just a second. The reason I bring that up is, Council, the mayor is the mayor accurately captured the sentiment. This is not a discussion or decision for staff. It's one for council. Many of you were here when we had 100 yards worth of vegetative debris on Shaw Mill Road that stayed there, Mr. Hare. How long was it? It stayed there for months and months and months. We did not have standards. You had aluminum. Any way you took it to the road, it was our responsibility to clean it up, and the council was not satisfied. So we actually hired a consultant because we did not want it to be just a staff-driven, what we want to pick up and what we won't pick up. We actually presented that to council, I think, over multiple meetings, and as you said, it was educate, educate, fine, educate, educate, fine, educate, fine, fine. We actually worked it out where we would go through this. And what Daniel is trying to share is that the standardization process, it has worked. But again, if the council wants us to do something different, it's not staff's recommendation, but it's your choice. But the more that we deviate from something that you just enacted 9 months ago, then we go back to every time something comes up, when we already have said we do more for solid waste than anyone else in the state. To the mayor's point, regardless of whatever bags the council opts, whether you follow the ordinance and that you have adopted or not, the residents have the ability and were using plastic bags before they bought the biodegradable bags or the reusable bags. Again, I get it confused too, Mr. Hare. Ended up in a storm drain is always a concern, but we do believe, again, for consistency's sake, so staff isn't making judgments on the street, and for us to educate the citizens, that we would request council maintain the ordinance, but it is absolutely council's decision if you want us to allow additional bags, but we don't want to go back to where we were, where the rules were a myriad of rules, different techniques and can sizes, and my next big goal is to make sure that we're no longer dumping hydraulic fluid and oil on the streets. That's the next big challenge we have. But with Daniel's help, with Sheila's guidance, and Adam as well, it's in his portfolio, we're making great strides. But when he said we collect 64,000 households a week, that's not accurate. It's 64,000 on yard waste that we potentially could collect. It's 64,000 on recycling that we could potentially collect. It is 64,000 that we could collect on household garbage. It is 64,000 that we could potentially have out for bulky goods, whether that's limbs, refrigerators, wash machines. My math is horrible, as the mayor knows. But if you do 64,000 times 4 different services that you can offer a week, times 52 times a year, that is 10 million different interactions that we are asking your 50 drivers or so and collectors to have to be responsible for. I can't make a whopper 50 that many different ways. And so this is a small issue for us, but it's one that we hope that council will give us guidance on and will support what you passed last year. But Daniel will answer any questions you have, but his recommendation and staff's is finished.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hewitt. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, what I would like to discuss on this, I think that we all know that communication and systems is where we need to be. If you have communication and you have systems and you have structure, you can be successful. When you take something out of the system and you don't do the norm, that can cause something that takes you 2 hours to do. If you give an exception, it can take you 2 days. It can put you behind. So what I'm seeing through your presentation and what we're talking about, these bags, is a different kind of bag kind of slows down the process, and it's not in the system. Because it seems like what I did read is 1% of the people are having a hard time adjusting. Is that basically what we saw?
No, it's 6 people out of 64,000.
Okay, that was said better. So what I will say is,
Better from him than from me.
thank you. So what I'm saying is, communication is working, that we try to say all the time. We have to communicate. People cannot do what they do not know. So you have done a great job in communicating with them and saying, this is why we do it, and this is how it needs to be done. I can remember that when people would bag up their bags and sit them out, we would go down 3 streets and fill up a truck and then have to come back. And the whole system was messed up, that people were taking weeks to get their yard waste. We have done a great turnaround and improvement. So I understand that we're trying to go biodegradable and things like that, but we've been doing this, you've been doing this for 8 months. It's working, and you've got a great system. So I think we just need to keep that in our minds, that they have come, they have communicated, and they have done a system, and they have structure. And I just got a text from somebody in my district. I mean, I have not spoken to this man in 6 months, talking about this in itself and saying, please don't mess up what we have, because the city is doing a great job on my yard waste. If I don't have enough, I go to my neighbor and I get their can. Please do not change this, because I live in a city where they're caring about it. So I could read you the text, but I just wanted to put that out to you. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilmember Green, and then Thompson, and Banks McLaughlin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You talked about the brown can being a 10-year warranty, and I think in the written report you talked about the bags being about 3 years if they don't rip prior. So what I didn't see was anything about the people manpower aspect of handling the different types of bags. Does that calculate into the formula? Being fiscally minded, I'm interested in that aspect of it.
If I'm understanding your question, you talking about my staff who's picking them up?
Correct.
So we have a driver and a loader. We have 10 trucks, and so that's times 2, so it's 20 people. And so the driver's driving, and if it's a big pile, he's getting out. If it's just 1 or 2 bags, the loader's just dealing with either the can or a bag, cutting it open, taking the bags away. So that's the pretty much. It's not sexy. It's just real simple stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they're not physically, the machine, there's manpower lifting those
Now-
reusable bags.
The reusable bags will be manpower
But the cart, the brown cart is lifted by the
lift,
truck.
by the truck. Yes, ma'am.
That's what I wanted to determine.
But for
Thank you.
clarity too, Councilmember Green, the yard waste bags, plastic bags that we collect, we lift those too.
We lift those too.
So, and those are likely going to be heavier than the recyclable bags. And so it's just about the whether you lift 50 pounds or you lift 225 pounds. It's really depends. So I think what you're trying to say is that that is negligible when you're talking about the bag type, as long as
Yes.
it's not overweight.
Yes. And it's about, as the manager said, it's about 1,500 homes per truck. So we do 15,000, a little over 15,000 a day. So it can end up being a lot of weight over a lot of time.
All right. Thank you. Councilmember Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Edwards, thank you so much for your great presentation. Look, you guys have done a great job over the past 8 months getting this information out to everybody, especially out in the west part of Fayetteville. We truly appreciate it. I'm thankful for you guys to be able to get through the landfill a lot faster so you can make it back out to the western part of Fayetteville. So our pickup is not delayed. The communication that you guys has put on your drivers is unbeknownst to none, because you guys really do a great job. I've talked to a couple of them, and I didn't circumvent the system. I just make sure they was doing okay.
Thank you, sir.
But I appreciate you guys coming to my chat and chew and giving your direction out to my entire district. I see you had your staff back there. I'm glad the morale is up. But one thing I do want the entire audience to be communicated to is about contractors. That is a big thing in West Fayetteville, because a lot of people get their yards and stuff done by contractors. And it's my understanding that they have to pick up their own waste and just can't leave it. And talk to them about parking in front of the containers that need to be picked up. Thank you.
Well, none of the carts are supposed, and that was in the ordinance also. Carts are we're supposed to have access to them. Not supposed to block anything that you want us to pick up. We have to have access, because if we hit something, scratch a car, we can say we're not going to repair or a can or a reusable bag, but if we hit your car, we got to pay for it. So it's an issue. So that's part of the ordinance is blocked, so we just don't pick it up. The contractors have to bring their own stuff to the Wilkes Road facility. We're not supposed to pick up contractor work. Even our sister cities don't pick up contractor work. In Connecticut, we don't pick up contractor work. If a contractor is doing the job, part of their contract is to take that stuff away. A lot of times they don't communicate that, especially to the elderly, that's already in their contract. And so what they do is they say, call the cities. My 4 years here, I can't tell you how many times I've heard of residents tell me that the contractor told them to call us, because they know, like the manager said, we're just going to come get it. There's a time where when I first got here, the motto was just pick it up. Just pick it up, which is not sustainable, especially if you think about all the contractors that are in this city. It's not sustainable. So, the contractors has to take their material with them.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. As part of your education stuff that y'all have on the website, I don't think you mentioned about contractors. Can somebody add that to the weekly updates that they have, so the community can know that contractors are responsible for picking it up, not the city of Fayetteville?
Yes, sir.
That's a good point. All right. Councilmember Banks McLaughlin.
Thank you. I don't have a question. If there were no other questions, I was just going to call for a consensus.
All right.
Okay. Consensus to continue using the accepted containerized methods for yard waste collection in the solid waste ordinance.
All right. Consensus motion by Councilmember Banks McLaughlin. All right. Those in favor? All right. Second. And second, sometimes we do it. It's a formality to it since it's not a formal vote, but I got you. So second by Councilmember Thompson. Those in favor of continuation? All right. Those opposed? All right. Motion carries 9-1. Vote in opposition, Councilmember Hondros. All right. Moving to item 4.03. Ms. Jennifer, you presenting?
No, sir.
Oh.
I am just assisting.
Michael, you just getting to work today? Yes, sir. Thought we were going to start off on a better foot.
Happy New Year to you too, sir. Happy New Year.
And Michael, as part of your presentation, he may have it, but council, this is also was a concern that members of council had brought to us several years ago, and We have, and it was a renewed request as well recently by members of council, and that is part of the update that Mike will be providing tonight.
Good evening, Council, Mayor, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
This is it was a council member request, and if you look in your packet for unaccompanied minors, there's an executive summary of how the City of Fayetteville Parks and Recreation handles unaccompanied minors throughout the recreational system when they show up at the rec centers. Normally what we do is if you go to your executive summary, we use the North Carolina statute that says 14-318 remains the primary thing that we use, and that's under the Exposed Children to Fire Code. And what it says is that a parent can leave a child that's 8 years old unaccompanied or at their house, locked behind the doors of their home. So that's normally what we use, what we go by. We've had conversations with 7 different parks and recreation agencies throughout the state, our peer cities. Talk with Cumberland County Schools, the social department, childhood advocacy centers. And technically, the practices just doesn't, the JDLR just doesn't look right. Our staff is responsible for making sure that there's a safe place. Thank you, sir. For the kids to be in our jurisdiction when they come over to the rec centers, and that's basically what we have. So I think Jennifer was trying to put up. I don't know if I can hit this thing. Oh. But you can see we did went around and see what the states do across the United States. Some of them have, Kansas is 6 years old. But you can see everything from a minimum. When you go down through North Carolina, you can see ours is 8 years old. But some of them, nobody has anything across the state, and this is just a website. I wanted to see this hyperlink so that you could have it if you wanted to look it up. All right, any questions?
Councilmember Thompson. All right, Mayor Pro Tem Jensen.
So Mike, that's all.
Go ahead.
I can't. It's okay.
Okay, great.
Okay. Thank you for the report. I guess my question is, for the listening audience and everything, for our parks and rec establishments, what are we, as of right now, we are asking that a 8-year-old can come in?
Well, I don't know if it's an 8-year-old. Normally at our rec centers, and this is during the summertime, we have our summer day camps. That's a controlled environment. Once the kids get out of the summer day camps or they go at the playground camps, if a child walks into the park, we consider Parks and Recreation to be responsible for them if you come on our property.
So I guess to bring light to the listening audience and people here, when we built our second pool, within 2 weeks, and I'm going to tell the story over and over again because I cannot get it out of my head, is that we had a child that I think was 3 years old, if I'm not mistaken, that got sent to the pool with their brother that was 6. Mama dropped him off and went shopping at Walmart, and the child found her way in a place that was very dangerous.
Yes.
I have a hard time sleeping at night that nobody knew. I don't know if it's our responsibility, that somebody just, did the mother check them in and then just snuck out and left? Don't know. But it could have turned out very bad. So I guess I keep bringing it up till we get some type of resolution that we have something, but we can't just let 3-year-old and 6-year-olds come into a very dangerous environment. And when I mean dangerous environment, water, the most powerful element in the world. And how can we make this not happen again? It's a very tough question, but we have to continue to talk about it.
So, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So, just to kind of recap this, Mr. Gibson, the proposal is to change it from what to what?
There is no proposal. The executive summary is what our practice is.
Okay. So you didn't need any guidance from us. Council, was there any interest in modifying this? Okay. All right.
Can we get a consensus vote on that, please?
Yeah, and so there's no action needed, so what are we consenting to? Are we receiving the information, or what is? Yeah, Councilman Harry, you had a question?
Mr. Gibson, say that again, because you gave us a couple of cities. I think you just stated that there was one city that an unaccompanied child could come in with 6 years old. And
Yes, sir. That's their legal.
right, and you said for us it's what?
8.
So an unaccompanied child can come on our campus, or our park campus, any of them, and you said that then the city becomes responsible for that child?
If you just talk about your neck of the woods, if you go to Seabrook Park,
Yes, sir.
there are playgrounds there for ages 2 to 5, and there are ages 6 to 12. There is nothing stopping a child 8
Right.
years old from walking from his home
Right.
and going and playing on the playground.
Right.
Nothing stops them.
Then I understand the liability part. I understand what you stated on that, but how does our team know? How does our staff know?
Well, I mean, we go outside, we check, we have cameras, we can tell. If a child looks like they can't manage their well-being, then it's up to our staff to make sure you approach the person, you approach the child to make sure that child can take care of themselves.
So
I mean,
we've had conditions like that where it was observed and we went to the next step, whatever that next step was. Is that what you're saying?
Mayor Pro Tem's example was at a pool that a lifeguard finally figured out that there was nobody watching these 2 young people, because the little 3-year-old started playing a little hard and got himself in a little bit of trouble. And then once you find those situations, then you bring those kids over and you manage their behavior and until you can figure out where the parent is or who the guardian is, and then you deal with that. And you just have those people. I don't know how, in an open environment with Parks and Recreation, how we manage, but we do have those situations.
Right. Thank
People
you,
are
sir.
not.
So
Thank you.
Council, what's before us is, I guess he's basically presented what the state minimum is for home, to leave someone at home alone. Now, council does have discretion to say what it is allowable, what's not on our property at our parks, if that's what you would like to consider, or we're just receiving this information for informational purposes only. Councilman Benavente?
I move that we do the recommended action, which is to receive the report.
All right. Is there a second by Councilmember McNair? All right. Those in favor of receiving the report? All right. 1, 2. Keep your hands up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right. Motion carries. All right. Those opposed were Colvin, Hare, Thompson, Davis. All right. So report received.
That's fine.
Is it? Okay. Colvin, Hare, Thompson, Davis. All right. So, and Jensen. Okay. That's what I was missing. All right. Well, yes, sir. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion that the policy committee come back with an adjustment age limit for our policies within the city, to
All right.
raise the age limit.
All right, so there's a consensus motion. You had something to add to that?
So, I don't want this to get to a place that children don't feel like they can't come there. I don't want it to come to a place like that. But what I do want is I do want some structure and some systems. So what we have talked about many of times for the past 5 or 6 years is when people come in, that we know that they are there. When you send your kids to school, there is a paper if something happens for somebody to call. We are not talking about, the playground. I get that. But we're not talking about a playground. We're talking about a swimming pool where you say there are people, there are lifeguards there. But that day that this happened, it was not a good thing that happened, and we need to realize that these things are happening. I don't want, out of anybody here, all of us do want children to be able to go to a place that's safe. But we want to make sure that somebody is knowing that that child is by themselves. Because what happened if those children just walked off?
Well, I want to make sure that
We're talking about a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old. The 6-year-old was in charge of the 3-year-old.
a 6-year-old couldn't come in and pay for themselves to come into the pool.
Mama came in,
Exactly.
Mama left.
Yes.
All right.
Controlled environment. I'm talking about outside of a controlled environment.
Okay. So what your consensus is, from my understanding, is the policy committee come back with
A recommendation.
some review, some information
To the council.
to see what, if any, because right now there is no specifics other than what the state statute talks about.
Which
correct?
is 8 years old.
Which talks about any child under the age of 18 locked or otherwise confined in a dwelling, building, enclosure, go away from such dwelling without leaving some person of age discretion. So you took the state's verbiage and pasted it here.
Yes.
Right now, that's our policy, so we really don't have one specific to the.
That's our procedure.
Okay.
We don't make policy. That's just the procedure that we use.
So that's the guidance that you
Yes,
go
sir.
by. The
Exactly.
best practice. Okay. So the consensus motion, I guess, is to have that reviewed to see if there's a little bit more definition put around that, and to bring that information back. Is that what
That is
you're asking?
correct.
All right, Councilman Mahandros.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I think most would agree that we got two extremes. So you got the one situation with the 3-year-old and the 6-year-old, and then we got potentially this situation where we're trying to make a policy or age requirement. I'm just thinking out loud, and I'm not opposed to the policy committee looking at it, but we have a Citizen Advisory Parks and Rec Commission. Have they talked about this? This is something we could task them with as well. And then once they come up with a recommendation, maybe then we can send that to policy committee, and then they could come just an extra step. I mean, we definitely want our parks and recs, I think, to be as inviting and inclusive of all children. I mean, and I get that a 3-year-old, a 6-year-old, most people would agree they can't necessarily fend for themselves, so there is a liability there. So I don't know. I just like Parks and Rec to look at it, maybe the commission, in addition to us. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Are you all opposed to the Parks and Rec Citizens Advisory? Okay. All right. Can you amend it to that?
I'll amend my motion to that, Mr. Mayor.
All right.
To have the Parks and Rec Advisory Board to give us a recommendation for the policy committee board to move forward with.
All right. All right. You got a question? Okay. All right. Those in favor of the advisory board? Okay. Motion carries. Good work. Good idea. Thank you. Mr. Gibson. Got to do better than 24 now. All right. So moving to item 4.04, consideration of changing council meeting start times. Who's making that presentation? You're the chair.
Okay.
All right.
I'm
Madam
making that presentation.
Mayor Pro Tem, Policy Committee.
All right. So the policy committee, which consists of Councilmember Hare and Councilmember Thompson, we started this probably about a year ago when something came up, and we have a book that we have been going through and making changes, and we thank y'all for everything that you have done to help us. So, changing of times. So we were talking and going through procedure, and we first started talking about council meetings. We had talked about maybe starting the council meetings an hour early, or general council meetings early. And it didn't really go that far, but we kept talking about it, and we started seeing what other cities were doing and best city practices. So we came back about a month ago and came up with a few ideas that we really are very excited about. So what we were, I guess I'll let Councilmember Hare, since you did the motion in the meeting, you want to give the motion? And what we had discussed is making our work sessions at 2 o'clock on Mondays instead of 5 o'clock. If you go back, you will see that the county does theirs at 9 o'clock in the morning on Mondays. They're all their work sessions. For our meetings, for our general membership meetings, our in the council chambers, what we are wanting to do is start our dinner meeting at 5:30, start the council meeting at 6:30. We will do announcements, and we will do the key to the city. What we have talked about, but this isn't, we'll go on with that one, but for our acknowledgements and giving awards and things, we have another plan for that the whole council will be involved. So I'm going to send that over to Councilmember Hare to do the motion, and then we can be open for discussion.
All right.
Madam Chair, I don't have that full document. Yeah, okay, thank you.
And we took out the last one.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
So this is our motion for, and our thoughts for council meeting, new council meeting starts times. And it reads, I make a motion, a consensus motion to begin our dinner meetings at 5:30 and our regular meetings to begin at 6:30. We will remove also, well, I guess I can just stop right there, and then I
Okay,
can.
and you have to put in about the 2 o'clock for the work session.
Okay, all right, so let me start from the beginning. We have our work session agendas, consensus thought to begin at 2 p.m. Our regular dinner meetings, we're asking that they begin at 5:30 p.m. and our regular meetings to begin at 6:30 p.m. And that is my consensus motion.
Okay, all right. So there's a consensus motion by Councilmember Hare stated to modify the beginning times of the meetings as stated. There's second by Councilmember Thompson. These are recommendations that came out of the Policy Committee. Discussion, Councilmember Benavente?
Thank you, Mayor Colvin. I think we all agree that sometimes our meetings go very late, and I know that this is a potential way to address that issue. I think a more effective way to address the issue during the meetings in particular is something that we've discussed previously when we kind of have slideshows that we should have reviewed, sort of read aloud to us. And really, when we get an agenda a week before, we have an agenda briefing session, we have over a week to go over these materials. If nothing has changed from the time that we've put it out there to the public and we've received it, I don't think it's necessary for us to necessarily rehash a lot of these presentations when we should have done our diligence. And now I understand that the counter argument is that, well, don't the people get a chance to, or, have things explained to them during the meetings? I think the folks that come to our meetings, the folks that are diligent about these issues, are just as, because they're that capable, are just as capable of going online and pulling these agenda briefings themselves. So, or these materials themselves. So my feeling is that if we're really worried about time, that we consider a change to the way that we sort of read everything aloud as if it's the first time we're seeing it, and we move past that and we'll probably cut a lot more time than just the 30 minutes we're trying to move back. The second issue I have is with the work session change. No one on city council currently really has a traditional work life or work traditional. Not really traditional. You're a boss. You're in charge. But I'm always concerned about the potential for citizens who are interested in this work, the 9-to-5 workers who want to serve in this capacity. And I know that it's not necessarily, us to change everything for them, but it concerns me the 2 o'clock when, again, I'm okay with the 6:30. The 5 to 2, I think, is a little harder for me to accept, just because I think that is a barrier for people's ability to participate as an elected official. So for those 2 reasons, I can't support this. I just think we need to think a little more deeply about what the real issue is about these extra long meetings and what really makes them so extra long. Because we could start at 6:30, we could start at 2 o'clock, but if we're still reading every page, we're still going to go long. We're still going to be late. So, let's address, I think, the thing that really makes it long. It's not the start time.
All right. Mayor Pro Tem Jensen.
So I just wanted to go back. So one of the things that we have been discussing is, yes, the times we do stay late, but, there are people that are here that come off from their job and they have to present to us. And there are times when people are trying to get special use permits or getting variances or getting things to do business in Fayetteville, are sitting here at 10 o'clock at night before they can present what they need to present. And so that was one of the reasons of going to the half an hour beforehand. I personally wanted to start it at 5, to be honest with you. I mean, the meeting at 5. But what I will say to that is, with staff has to be here during those times, especially, during our work sessions. And the other thing is, we started looking and seeing what everybody around us is doing. And, I know at one point that Raleigh starts theirs at 11 o'clock. Their big meeting at 11 o'clock in the afternoon, in the morning. So one of the other things that the reason of this is recognitions and things like that. And we have a plan to run for a whole month, and we'll go back into that. But we are looking to make our meetings more effective and more structured and to get the city's business done. So that was just my thing.
All right. Councilmember Benavente has spoken. Thompson, I think, cleared his. All right. Any other comments, questions? Councilmember Banks McLaughlin, then Green. And McNair.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. I was going to ask, with the motion, could it be amended to separate the 2 from the work session from 2 o'clock to the actual meeting? Not everybody is retired. Some people have jobs and may not be this council, but future council members. We don't want to make them feel that, they can't be a part of council or serve on council because of the hours. And not even just with work. Some people have children. So I think that that's something we might need to consider. But I would ask if you would be willing to amend that to separate the 2. Then I would be able to support it. If not, I won't be able to support it. Thank you.
All right. Councilmember McNair.
Who's next?
Can I add something to that?
Was it you next?
And then I was going to say also, too, we want to be mindful of the residents that come into each one of our meetings, which most of them probably work. So we want to be mindful of that as far as them coming in, not being able to come in at an earlier time. Thank you.
All right. Councilmember Green. I'm trying to go by the order. So if I get it wrong, I apologize.
It's okay. Councilmember Banks McLaughlin kind of touched on what I was going to request. I just got several texts also about what about teachers? What about nurses who work shift work who could come in here at 3, by 5, but couldn't make the 2 o'clock? I don't think it was the intent of the policy committee to be restrictive in that way. I think it was an effort to we were looking at the current group, and I'm not part of that, I just sat in on the group, but we were looking at the current makeup of the council and didn't think beyond that, the current people here now, and we definitely should have. So I would also love to see the motion split, just so we could address another option for the work session. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Hondros. Oh, McNair and then Hondros. Get it together, Mitch. The screen keeps changing. I'm sorry. Councilman McNair.
Thank you, sir. I only work 6 days a week. And
Tell me about it.
Me too.
all day long. And then 2 o'clock to me kind of like interrupts my day. Then also I want to consider those people that work late or get off at 4 or 5 o'clock. 2 o'clock may work for some of you that are on council, but it doesn't work for me.
Thank you, ma'am.
That's all I have to say.
All right. Councilman Hondros.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All valid points. Councilmember Benavente and Banks McLaughlin mentioned the starting earlier time for folks that work, and also being prepared. So the two things don't have to be mutually exclusive, right? We can do our homework and still move the meeting times. As far as the binding future councils, just like we change policy, future councils can change these times. So it won't bind. It's just talking about for this council. So my feelings on it, I'm available whatever time we need to be here. But, the work session, the first Monday of the week, and then the agenda briefing, the Wednesday before, the third Wednesday before the second meeting of the month, they're really for us to get an understanding of what we want to put on the agenda and what's going to be on the agenda. So I don't know that as many folks tune in as they do for the actual council meetings, but that's just my 2 cents. But it won't bind future councils, but I agree, we don't have to have all the PowerPoints read to us, so thank you.
Thank you. I did want to just add my perspective. I think if you have something that is impactful to you or pertains to you, just like court goes on from 9 to 5, you take time off and you go there for that particular item. We have it covered where the meetings are televised and they're recorded so people can catch up with what went on. I do think we have to get more in the mindset of things being done during the course of business, because it is bad to have people here who are waiting on zoning matters or other matters to have to wait to 10, 11 o'clock at night for a special use permit hearing, particularly when we get long-winded. We do about a hour worth of acknowledgments, presentations, and other stuff before we get down to business, and we should, I think, take in consideration that some of these people have things that they need handled during the course of business, and we're used to doing that. School hearings happen in the daytime, court happens in the daytime. So I think that there, and to Councilman Hondro's point, the work session is our preparatory times, and I think that if sometimes if we could consider changing that, if there is a issue with it with a future board, that they have the ability to fix it. I do agree with that. So, all right, Mayor Pro Tem, second round.
Okay. So,
who didn't? Thompson.
Yeah, I thought you said.
I thought you turned your light out. You must be blind. All right, Mr. Councilmember Thompson.
But I just want to catapult on what you just got finished saying, and I'm going to try to make a point here. Out of the 15 months that I've been on council, how many civilians have we had at a work session? Not that many if you look at the stats. 2, we want to talk about a lot. What would make our meeting shorter if we didn't have 10 questions for somebody that was giving us a presentation? So if we start following the policies of giving somebody 3 minutes the first round, 2 minutes the second round, then that would make our meetings a lot shorter too. So let's not put the burden on everybody else. Let's police ourselves and put the burden on us. If we can do what we can to get our business done and get out of here, then that would make it suffice for everybody. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Thompson. All right, Mayor Pro Tem Jensen, second.
Okay, so this is my last one about the policy. I want everybody to understand. When we were talking in the policy committee that we came up We were looking at doing work sessions at 8 o'clock in the morning, just like the county does. They do their work sessions at 8 o'clock in the morning. But because we have people that work, we went back and forth. We didn't take this decision lightly one bit, not one bit. So we said, okay, we start at 8 o'clock. It can go till 12 o'clock for all we know, or it could go to 9 o'clock. So the people that do work, we said, well, let's start it at 2, because if it goes for 3 hours, they get to be, staff can leave and we can be home by 5. Not us, but staff. So staff is doing the work within the day, like they do in the county. Everybody's here for work session. We are in the building. We have a question. Staff is here in the building to answer our questions. So I don't want everybody to think that we said, oh, we're going to do it at 2 o'clock and there was no discussion. The discussion was 8 o'clock, just like the county. But we know that our meetings last a lot longer sometimes than the county. So I thought it would be bad if you work, you come in at 8 and expect to be out by 10 and you get out at 11. That's worse. So just a little background. And I know that a lot of people were in the meeting to know how we came up with that. So with that being said, I think that was my third round, did not go by policy, so I'll stop.
All right, council, any other questions, comments? All right. Is there a proposal or consensus motion? All right, so Councilmember Harris' motion was made to accept as printed, which is basically to begin work sessions at 2 p.m. And to have regular meetings beginning at 6:30, then a meeting at 5:30. All right. And there was a second to that? All right. All right. All right, those in favor of the proposed change? All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, those opposed? All right, motion carries 6-4. Those opposed, Councilmember Green, McNair, Banks McLaughlin, and Benavente. All right, thank you. Good work, Policy Committee. So we'll see how that goes. All right, moving to item 4.05. These are 5 and 6 are council member requests, meaning there's 5 minutes. Madam Clerk, you tracking the time? All right. Item 4.05 is council member Hare, vape shops. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Council, over the years, and we've had issues with tobacco shops and now vape shops that are popping up throughout our community, and especially a lot of them are in or very close to our residential communities and our sometimes less fortunate or poor economically communities. Even when we started having the tobacco shops popping all up, these are basically the same. I think other than you go and you can actually smoke in there. I'm not sure it's all what you do inside of a vape shop. So what my concern was, or what my issue was, as it was in the past, is that what could we do to help protect our residential communities, and especially our lower income communities where these vape shops seem to pop up more rapidly in larger numbers than I see them in other areas. I do know that this is an issue that I think that the county is already looking at. I've already reached out to a couple of the members, still waiting to get some feedback from them. But I wanted to send this to staff and for them to look at how could we modify this? How could we improve this? How could we even look at the zoning and see what we can do in zoning where they can actually be placed, or even how close they can be placed to residential communities. That is my request and open for discussion.
So, Councilman Mayor, I did want to add, so Superintendent had sent something to the chairman of the commission, and myself some months ago, asking for kind of a consistent ordinance that had some distance around these vape shops to schools.
Yes.
And the county moved theirs forward, and I think if it's not passed, it's about to. Were you considering something that mirrored the county's ordinance?
Yes, sir. And and especially the schools, of course,
Yeah.
because those are some of the concerns that I receive, and probably a whole lot of us that are sitting around this table.
So he
here
took an
tonight.
example from
So,
Wake
yes.
County and Raleigh, who did a mirroring ordinance. So the county has moved forward with theirs, and so
I've had that
so
same
your request
conversation.
is it for staff to come back with to research what the county's ordinance is and bring it back to council.
Yes, sir.
All right. Y'all have any other questions? Any questions about that, Councilmember Hondros?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I think I spoke to the chairman about this briefly at an event a couple months ago, and he mentioned he was going to be doing this, Chairman Adams. I have no issue with the distance to schools and/or religious facilities. I've seen some of these where they also do a distance from each other. You have a McDonald's across the street from a Burger King, across the street from a Wendy's. You have car dealerships across from each other. So this use is no different. If we want to argue that the product they sell is not beneficial, then, we're not doing anything to look at the root cause. Anytime there's a demand for something, somebody's going to fill that void if the supply is not there. So we're not doing anything proactive to say, try to steer people away from the products, but then we're going to tell people they can't open up. So, the landlords that house the real estate that houses these businesses or taxpayers, the businesses, the business owners, small business owners that operate these businesses are taxpayers. So a lot of times we talk about policies and ordinance that negatively impact minority community. Most of the operators of these businesses are minority as well. So, I'm okay with, again, protecting schools and protecting, even if you want to include religious, my hang-up will be distance of these businesses from each other. Thank you.
All right. Are these recent questions here? Is it Councilman McNair? You had something? And Benavente.
I think I want to know. I know District 7 has about 15 shops.
And we just crossed our 5-minute timeline, but keep going. We'll finish the discussion.
So, are you asking for a study to reposition these vape shops, or just?
What I'm asking is normally how we do in the workshop is we send the concern, and even if there are some additional concerns from other members, back to staff, and then staff will let us know, what they think can be done, what cannot be done, how can we protect against these communities, how can we protect against schools, how can we protect against religious institutions, and on and on and on.
So it's
That's
just
them
the
to do
schools and the
So
religious?
so they do that homework, and then they bring it back to us.
So what about low-income subdivision or neighborhoods?
Yes, ma'am, that
Same
was the
thing?
very first thought that I
Okay, yeah,
requested.
because I had a concern about that at once. However, there's one in the plaza with my salon, and I mentioned it to my landlord, but his concern was it actually adds to the other businesses because the traffic is heavy. So I think my concern would be, what is the take on that versus, just stopping people from opening up vape shops?
Well, was it tobacco stores that you were
Vape
talking
shops
about?
and tobacco
vape
stores,
shops.
pretty much,
Okay.
they
All
go
right.
together.
I
I
got you.
mean, most of them,
Sometime.
yeah.
I got
Yeah,
you.
sometimes.
All right. So Council, we're at the 5 minutes. So Councilmember Hare, your petition to the board is to see if there's support to send it back to staff for proposals to include looking at the county's ordinance or other methods.
Looking at yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All
To
right.
look at the county and
All right, Council, show of hands, those in favor. All right, motion carries.
Thank you, council. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Item 4.06, Councilmember Banks McLaughlin.
Thank you, Mayor. City Attorney, if I go too far in the weeds, if you can correct me or stop me because of the situation. My item request reads, as far as this agenda item, I envision this agenda item will accomplish the goals of reassuring the public that the council takes seriously disrespectful and discourteous treatment of staff and other council members and hold specific council members accountable for their actions. This will also ensure trust and confidence in city government through transparency, high quality, and customer service. This item request brings us here today due to some accusations of discrimination and a hostile work environment from our former police chief. The following members were named in these allegations. Is it fine to say the names? Well, Council Member Benavente as well as Mayor Colvin. And this is the reason why I'm requesting the censure. Council, we voted 8-2 to settle in the amount of $200,000. These funds were used from our residents' taxpayer dollars. Again, both the mayor and council member should be held accountable for these actions as well as this misconduct. As a representative of the city, we must lead by example. We must be transparent. Whether this was an employee in solid waste, same as far as an elected official, they both have to be held accountable on the same standard. It cannot be two different things. Someone, again, needs to be held accountable to ensure that this never happens again to any of our city employees. My hope is that this board agrees and that we take these allegations serious, and this is something that we don't condone. So again, my ask is to censure both Mayor Mitch Colvin and Councilmember Mario Benavente.
All right. Well, we've been instructed by the attorney that Councilman Benavente and I could participate in the discussion, but not in the ultimate vote decision. And I will say the portion that I have to say about it. I see Councilman Benavente's ring, and then we'll move it along during the 5 minutes. You know, the city council, previous city council, was brought with the allegation back on August of 2023 by the former chief, and they had to make a decision which did not admit guilt. They hired attorneys, which came in and interviewed staff members and chased each allegation, and they were unsubstantiated. And they made a decision at the time that the cost of litigation would exceed defending this. And so they made a decision as a board to close this. Now, I am disappointed that my colleague, certainly within her rights to do so, didn't say anything about this in August or September or October or November. But until she starts to run for office, here we are. Again, as I said, particularly in my case, to talk about a conversation, a Zoom call for 4 years ago that she wasn't a part of. And the people who were a part of it were interviewed and were vetted. And so I think this is a waste of our time and resources tonight. But again, this is within her rights, and I'm here to defend my reputation with it. But there was not an admission of guilt by me in that, and I don't want it implied tonight. Councilman Benavente? Well, you had to.
Well, as Mayor Colvin said, we're not in a position to vote. Our brilliant attorney made sure that we understood exactly the policy about why. And while I don't support this request, censure I don't think is the worst outcome of this. I think really the worst outcome that I do not want to happen is for us not to be able to work together on matters that you and I are both passionate about, Councilmember Banks McLaughlin, over these next 2 years. Because I know when it comes to homelessness, addressing youth gun violence, or fully funding an office of community safety, we're on the same page. So regardless of my feelings, I want to be intentional about repairing any harm, actual or otherwise, that you may feel like has occurred, so that we can do the necessary work for our city. because this term has just started, and we've got to be able to work better together.
All right, Councilman Banks McLaughlin, we have 30 seconds.
Yes, and I was going to say too, again, you guys need to be held accountable. The city spent $200,000 from things that you guys, I'm saying allegedly committed. As far as wasting time, we just wasted funds, taxpayer funds. As it relates to working together, I'm fine. I can continue to work with council. That will never interfere with me working with council. But at the end of the day, what's right is right and what's wrong is wrong. And you guys need to be held accountable. And I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you. Councilmember Davis, you had something real quick.
Okay. Although I believe in ethics, I believe in respecting everyone. I was not a council member at the time, so I cannot support this agenda item.
But you can vote. You did support spending $200,000.
All right. Madam Clerk, where are we on this item? Time? You're done. Okay. All right, council, there's a proposal before you. Councilmember Benavente and I will not be participating in the vote, but Councilmember Banks McLaughlin is the act as presented. So those in favor of the request? Mr. Mayor, was there a motion? Yes, I guess our motion is to...
There was a motion to censor both
Well,
Mayor
this is not a
Colvin
formal
and
meeting, so I guess it'll be a motion for consensus to move it to.
consensus, yes.
All right. Those in favor?
Well,
All right.
I hope you guys have the opportunity to commit to your,
All right.
talk to your council,
Meeting
your
adjourned.
staff, and
Councilmember
your.
Banks McLaughlin.
I'm still
the
talking.
item,
meeting.
the item is over, and they
Well,
moved on.
I hope the community hear this, and you guys have a lot to go back to.